time. And Chris, is it you, Peter, or is it Chris? Okay, come on. I guess do we have a minute?
We do have a minute.
Okay, so Peter's going to ask me about what happened at my senior prom.
First of all, big hand for Steve Young. Awesome job.
I'm going to go home and my wife's going to say, man, you're tan.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing hardship duty up here.
That's how I roll. No, it was really warm. I felt the warmth.
Yeah, exactly. Just a couple of questions, Steve. So first of all, that was awesome. One thing that strikes me about your career is that it's not uncommon for football players or anyone involved in pro sports to take the next step into an analyst, right? It is very unusual for a pro football player. I don't think it ever happens to a defensive football player.
No, it never.
It has to be offense. But to actually co-found a private equity fund, which is what you did. And that's got to be so far out of your comfort zone. And I think marketers deal with things outside of our comfort zone all the time. I'm just wondering, what prompted you to take such a big leap?
I'll simplify it. My dad, when I was growing up, he would always ask me what the plan was. And the plan could not involve a dream. So I would say, well, Dad, my plan is to be Roger Staubach. And I'm going to be with Dallas Cowboys. I know I grew out of that. It took me a little while. I matured. But I was going to be Roger Staubach. He goes, well, no, Steve, that's the dream. What's the plan? And I'm like, well, the plan is that I'm going to go to college and throw for 1,000 yards. Steve, that's the dream. What's the plan? And so constantly talking about the plan. The plan was always that I was going to go to law school and be a lawyer, or my dad was a lawyer, and I always thought that would be great. And that stuck with me. And it was so funny when I turned pro in 1984. By about 1987 or 8, he's like, so Steve, what's the plan? And I'm like, well, Dad, the plan is now I'm making, things are good. I'm playing football, and he goes, Steve, that's the dream. You're living the dream. What's the plan? I'm like, well, I guess it's to go to law school. In 1988, I started law school and went a semester a year for 6 years, won 3 Super Bowls while I was in law school. Graduated in 1994 because that was the plan, right? No, I always feel like, oh, that was great. It came with fun. Trust me, it was like, but what I'm saying is, I had that in my mind. What's the plan? And so when I finally retired, I'm 38 years old. You still feel completely young, and the plan is not to sit around. The plan was to do something substantive. So to me, it's like rearview mirror, all that stuff that's happened, great. You want to hear some stories? I got plenty of them, but I got to go because I'm going to do something completely different. And there's humility in that. There's a dad that's telling you get a plan, and transitioning. I mean, it's hard. Even today, we had our annual meeting today. We just closed over $1 billion fund. It's incredible the way it's grown. And the annual meetings there are investors from all over the world. And there was still a part of me that was like, I'm a fraud. Because you still feel like the jock, the athlete, the guy that, and to transition. And so here I am 15, 20 years later and still have that part of me. It's like, am I really transitioned? So just know that that's okay. I'm a real believer, Peter, in fake it till you make it. And I've been doing it a long time. So
That's great. Well, so I love your story about mitigation and accountability, and that has such real-world application, certainly in marketing or any other career. I'm just wondering, so in your job, either at your private equity firm or as an analyst, you're working with a lot of different people. Do you just have kind of a mitigation and accountability sensor that just kind of goes off immediately? Do you see it immediately?
It happens to me too. I mean, I would try to put the girls to bed. I have 2 little girls, 6 and 8, and they're best friends. And putting them to bed is like putting 2 rabid squirrels into the bed. They're just, that's a bed, rabid squirrel, I don't know. Anyway, it's very difficult. And so I have a plan. What's the plan? I'm going to get up. Let's huddle. Okay, we're going to go through the thing. This is what we're going to do. Ready, break. They love that. Oh, yeah, Dad, ready, break. Okay, you guys are all set. Okay, good night. Walk out. I'm like, God, girls, come on. We had a plan. Come on. Okay. And I settle in. I'm like, come on. This is no more. Come on. We got to go to bed. And so pretty soon, I'm like furious. And they were talking the accountability meter. I miss it. I'm like, wait a second. It's not my fault, it's their fault, they're being crazy, but I have not done my part in just getting, expressing why they need to be there in bed, why it's important, if you take the time with kids, they'll get it. And I give you that example because even myself, I'm like, there's mitigation here. That's not me. You know, this whole communication thing, that's overrated. It's not about communication. It's just they need to listen, right? And so it happens day to day for me all the time. And so I just watching your own live, and just watch the quarterbacks talk. It's unbelievable when you watch it. When you're like, oh my gosh, Steve told me. Look what he just said. Loser. You know. I'm just kidding.
All right, that's great. I can't let you go without asking one football question.
Sure.
Trying to make it apply to
draft. You want to know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, it was my fantasy football team.
Yeah.
I want to know. Actually, going way back, it was actually in the highlight reel. The game against the Packers. So setting the scene, I think the 49ers are down by 4 points. It was less than a touchdown.
January 1999, so it's not that long ago.
Oh, sorry.
No, but I'm just saying, it was like I played with Newt Rockney in the 30s. I'm just trying to bring myself forward, Peter. Go ahead.
If you remember the morning keynote, that's when I said that I was still in my teen years, so that's just a frame of reference. So during that game, right, there's 8 seconds left.
7.
You're going back, 7 seconds left.
Not that I was focused.
Exactly. And this is for the NFC Championship. This is to go to the Super Bowl, right?
Well, it was a divisional playoff game to get to
Okay,
the
I haven't gotten one single detail right.
You're doing great, though. Brennan's Connecticut, you were right.
We got that going. All right, very important playoff game.
Yes.
But this is where you either complete the pass for a touchdown or you go home. I'm just wondering, like, there's so many times when we've had big moments in our career, your big presentation or something like that. I just wonder, were you nervous? Was there anxiety associated with that? And if so, how do you quell it?
My anxiety was always before the game. I mean, if you want me to go into a place that I like is just painful and just chalkboard, fingernails on a chalkboard feeling, take me back to that sitting in the locker room before a game, waiting for the game, sitting there, and especially a playoff game or a big Monday night game, and you're just like, oh, just get me out of this. I'm stuck in this place of anxiety. Once I started to play, because the game is so fast, you could really kind of get going. You had a level of anxiety about the big picture, like we got to win, but you could get it out physically. And so when that happens, you get towards the end of the game, there is a sense of desperation, but you know from playing a long time that whenever you get desperate, it ain't happening. It's the weirdest thing. The more desperate you get, the further you are from having it happen. And so there is more of a workmanlike attitude even down to the end, so that you're like, okay, here, and I think that actually helps you because everyone else naturally is more desperate. It's human nature to get desperate when the pressure's on. And so I knew that I could take advantage of that with some of the guys that were on the defense because we've been going back and forth all day. And so playing cat and mouse. And what was funny about that play is we noticed my center, I go to drop back, he steps on my foot, and I almost fall down.
Yeah.
And that was part of the genius, the idiot savant in me, disappear and reemerge, and everyone will be messed up, throw it to Terrell Owens and win the game. But I think that I learned that from Joe, to be honest with you. Joe was the coolest cat. Everyone says he was Joe Cool. It really was. The guy could not, I mean, it's like, part of the time I'm like, Joe, you should like yell right now. You should yell at somebody. He'd be like, nah, we're fine, But he'd go out and just execute the plan, and everyone else is crazy, and we have a plan, execute it, and he would just boom, 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 done. Well, champion. You're like, he did it like that. And so I learned that. I learned that desperation was not a place you want to live.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. We really appreciate you coming
Thanks,
by.
Please. This will be very memorable, I mean, this is a great venue because you're like, I can't care less what he's saying, but I'm looking at a beautiful scene, so it's really cool. So I knew that you were semi-engaged me because no one fell asleep. They're like watching the boats.
So just one little thing. So during the morning keynote, when I was up here talking,
yes,
Matt Cain was actually warming up right in back of me.
Yeah.
Literally, no one paid attention to a word I said. So you had a rapt audience compared to that.
That would have been rough.
Yeah.
I would have had Matt come up and take over. Like, come tell a story. I'm struggling up here.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, take care, buddy.